In this chapter, we will hear from Moya, Gavin, Peter, Anne and Estelle about their childhood, growing up at Adeny Avenue, and what their family life was like. First, we'll hear from Peter, Estelle and Anne from July 2021, including a tale of when they moved away from Adeny Avenue.
My main memory is the park opposite. Because I think we would have spent a lot of time in the park because it was the only place where we could play. Really, because the backyard was always chock-a-block trees or clotheslines. Yeah.
That's it.
So
We all went to go on the monkey bar and there's three
that's right.
of those.
Remember, Gavin fell off
The slide.
the slide, cracked his head.
Yes, I think so. I didn't fall off that. They didn't have any.
I remember Gavin playing on the slide after school. Coming home, must have been from the Maris brothers, and he'd lost his cap and he was too frightened to come home.
Oh, right.
I lost the desk jumper
Oh!
in the park I left. It was brand new and was bought from the Langnit.
Oh,
I didn't get another one.
No, well, we had lots of fun over in the park and in the garden. And at the time, there was a garden. And had flowers, Mr. Plumridge was the gardener.
That's right, he was the curator, wasn't he?
Curator.
There was a curator. He lived, his house was in the part of up the hill.
Yes, in a separate part.
Yes, and he was...
I don't suppose you remember, we did move once. I've got a very vague memory that we moved house from Adeny Avenue further down High Street. And we... just near Clyde Street, I think it was. We didn't stay there very long.
But we must have stayed there for a little bit longer because I remember standing at the fence in the corner next to the shops.
Yeah, my memory is just that we didn't stay there very long. I just remember it, that we lived down there and then moved back to Adeny Avenue.
Well, I was the baby because you wheeled me onto the tram line.
Oh,
Yes, Peter, tell us about putting mum on the tram lines. What do you...
I don't know. That's that's a false memory.
And I don't recall because I think I might have been a month old or something in a pram.
No, I think I took her out in the pram and wheeled her down the tram track. And I don't know how we got off the tram track before a tram came.
Because the wheel got caught in the tram
But
lines.
someone came in to tell Mum that the pram was on the tram line or something.
See, I think I would have been the star performer because I was the youngest, and then Anne suddenly came along and took over.
That's right.
And this is the house at 763 High Street that the family moved to for a short while around 1936. We know from Gavin, who was a bit older at the time, that the move was to allow the sleep out to be built at Adeny Avenue. Gavin recalls that it was built down the side of the house, made of concrete sheeting and windows. No such thing as insulation, so it was very hot in summer and very cold in winter for both him and Peter. But it still must have been better than the front veranda that Gavin had been using as a bedroom, with just the heavy canvas awning pulled down to provide some shelter. Now, let's hear some more from Peter and the others about the time it took to pay off the home loan.
Because I remember years later when the dad paid the final instalment on the house at Adeny Avenue, he was a very, very happy man.
Yes, it was about 26 years.
It took him a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it took us that long to pay off a house.
Because see, the State Savings Bank took over the home loans during the Depression, and it was through their kindness, I suppose, because they reduced the loan repayments and extended the time, so that many people were like our parents, they were able to buy their homes. But it might have taken about 30 years, but they became home owners.
We will now hear from Peter, Anne and Estelle talking about the times where ill health with either their mother or their father would mean that they spent quite significant time away from their home, being looked after by friends, relations or others. Something that must have had a significant impact on each of them throughout their lives.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was a goer, and also I think that if you may remember, he had a breakdown just before the war broke out.
Went to Mildura.
And I think that that's probably the result of this working through the depression and trying to hang on to the men that he employed. So he branched out in as many ways as he could. So yeah, I remember that because the lady next door had to look after me, because
yes, they went away for a holiday, didn't they?
Yeah, Mum and Dad went away together. They went to Hepburn Springs.
And who looked after you when they went to Hepburn Springs?
Well, I got the measles just before they left. So Miss Smith from next door said she would look after me. And it was while I was in bed there that Bob Menzies announced the start of the Second World War.
Oh.
It is my melancholy duty to inform the Australian public that England has declared war on Germany, and we too are at war with Germany. This is September the 3rd, 1939. I only know that because of the history, but that's where I was. I remember thinking that the war was breaking out in Melbourne. I was 7.
Well, no, I went to Abbotsford Convent. How old was I then?
But that was when you were a baby.
3. No, about 3.
I was at Fitzpatrick's down in Glenferrie, and I stayed down there for quite a long time. There was 3 old maids.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
How old were you then?
I had my 5th birthday down there, so I must have been 4 when I first went down there.
So I would have been only about 3 at Abbotsford
Yeah,
Convent.
so I stayed with these Fitzpatricks. There was Nell, she was a dressmaker, and there was Kate and Sis.
And Sis.
Because I stayed with the Fitzpatricks for about 6 months. I went to kindergarten at Manresa for 2 days, I think. I didn't
At that
stay
time,
long.
Gavin was put in with the Salesian Fathers in Sunbury.
Yes.
Where did Moya go? What about Moya?
I don't know what happened to Moya.
No,
She might have gone and stayed with her grandparents.
No, Gavin stayed at the grandparents.
And,
'cause
and
he went
Gavin
up-
went to Salesians.
Ah, did he?
he went to Salesians. Moya, do you think she
So
might
how
have
long was
stayed?
this for?
Oh, Gavin would have gone for about 3 months, I think. I don't know whether it was at the time of the beginning of the war, but Mum was often unwell, and sometimes we were farmed out.
Yes, because I stayed at the Pirries one time and I was only little then, down in Kincora Road in Glenferrie, and Mrs. Pirrie thought it was marvellous because she only had boys.
That's right.
Yes,
So I was, it was just a little bit of a fresh air.
Yes.
And she had a girl from
Daughter Helen.
Abbotsford, and she died.
Yes.
But Mary came
Yes.
from Abbotsford,
Abbotsford Convent.
and she was the housekeeper. And she
Anne and Estelle will now share some of their memories of school, the perils of cleaning the blackboard, chalk dust for those of you who've only ever known a whiteboard, and doing homework.
finished school, we went to Genazzano, which was the most stupid thing out. But anyway, our mother must have decided we were to
got
go
the
to
sheep,
Genazzano. And we didn't have all our friends from primary school. They went to Vaucluse or Lindau. And we had to go off to Genazzano, which everyone thought, snobby. And we lost all our friends in these, well, I did anyway, these few friends. And anyway, we went to Gen, and then after that I went nursing, so that was it.
So what was school like? Like in those days, did you?
As long as you didn't have the right uniform on, you were all right.
Yeah, I got tipped off and I didn't have a clean shirt to wear, so Mum said I'll just wear that short sleeve one, and the collar got by, and I was playing netball in those days. It was called basketball, and we were practicing at lunchtime. Miss Healy, who was in charge, said, "You take that jumper off, Estelle, you'll get far too hot." And I'm saying, "No, not one bit hot." And she said, in the end, she said, so I'd take it off, and of course I had short sleeves. So when the finished practice, the nun called me over and said to a girl there, Flora, would you take Estelle upstairs and give her a shirt to put
Why
on?
didn't you just say put your jumper back on?
Well, that's what she didn't. She said, would you take Estelle upstairs and give her a shirt, the proper
With
shirt
sleeves
to wear?
on it.
So what years did you go? What did you go up to in Genesano, Mum? Or Estelle? Did you go to
Well, I
Form
didn't
5
go
or
there till
Form 4?
Form 1. I went in Form 1 and went in
Yeah.
grade 6.
It's because I was ill. I've been sick. I've had sinusitis because I was always cleaning the blackboard apparently,
I knew that.
and I inhaled and I ended up in hospital with sinusitis, and I had to go to St Vincent's Hospital, and
Next thing,
I had all the antrim washouts in those days.
These days you would have sued the school for not giving you protection from the chalk dust.
It was 13 times they did that, and I was in hospital for, and it was it was in St Vincent's public
Yeah.
because Dad got a bed. Tom King,
specialist.
he was an orthopaedic specialist, and he had some beds at St Vincent's. So Dad asked him, did he have a spare bed that I could go into because it was so hard to get in. So I went in there, and I was a kid. So I went through all these, and I've never had never had trouble since. So sometimes the severe was all that needed to be done, and I did that. I think it was 13 washouts I had, but it was
So you were in grade 6 and you went to what, Form 4 or Form 5?
Form 5 I went
Form
to,
5.
and I left there Form 5, and then you couldn't start nursing till you were 18.
So when you were going to school, what was school like? Did you have lots of homework or did you...
Well, I don't remember. The only thing I remember about homework was on the weekends you'd have to
Do the essay.
do an essay, and you would always be trying to get Dad to help us to do these essays because
At 9 o'clock at night.
he was pretty clever, Dad, wasn't he,
Yes,
Peter?
yes.
He had a good brain,
Yeah, he's
but-
right.
and he, liked to help you. He did like to help us,
Mm.
and then he'd go and lie down in the sleep out and take the newspaper to read, and he'd cover himself up so he can go to sleep on a Sunday afternoon. Oh dear. No, that was all right. Genesano was all right because I played sport. You see, if you played
This is
sport,
it.
you were okay.
I did too.
We played netball, and then we played softball,
softball,
and we used to go and play against Mandeville Hall and
Sacré-Cœur,
Kerr,
Siena, Vaucluse.
Siena, and just down at Vaucluse.
And I was sports captain one year.
I wasn't a sports guy.
I had Dr. Rowan's tennis cup, and I won that one year.
In 2003, Bernie McGee visited Moya for a short video for Anne McGee's 70th birthday. Moya shares some of her memories of the family, and in particular how hard their father worked, albeit in a way that could not be said today, and perhaps shouldn't have been said then.
But the whole thing was we grew up never going without anything, Bernard.
Yeah.
Even though Dad, he worked very hard and he was a hard man, but he was working like a nigger.
Yeah.
And Mother was a wonderful person, and she was so patient, really very patient.
Also back in 2003, Gavin and Estelle shared some memories talking about housework at Adeny Avenue.
So what jobs did you do around the house?
Oh, well, it'd be the Sunday, the big job day when Dad was home, remember that?
Yes, yes.
And you had to peel the potatoes and peel the apples, and don't take too much skin off them. You did it with a knife, you didn't have a...
It was equal opportunity. The boys and the girls got the same.
And we did,
Yes.
and had to clean the bathroom basin. Oh, I remember doing that. And that was Dad there, we'd be there, so I'd get this in and do this, and do that stuff. I don't remember making beds or anything like that. But they were jobs that had to be done.
And before we finish, we have one more recollection of life at Adeny Avenue, captured back in 2003, where Gwen recalls the time that she first met Anne and the family and experienced some of Frank's sense of humour.
I've known Mum many years. I think the first time I met her, I might have been having a meal at your place, and typical Pa, we're sitting down for a meal. You might remember this, and he would say, "Well, now hurry up and finish your meal because all the plates have got to go back to Miss Smith." That was my first recollection.
That's what Dad said.
She was the next door neighbour.
Yeah. And he used to joke like this, and Anne was there that night, so I remember meeting Anne there. I don't.
So that was life growing up at Adeny Avenue. And even though this picture was taken many years after the Carukans had moved out, you can still see the sleep out on the left-hand side.